What is up, friends? All right, so I have a talk. Whoops, I just remembered. Whoop, there, that looks a little better. I have a talk at that conference in just a little bit of time. And so I need to practice. And my talk is going to be, what's 90 minus 15? 75 minutes long. And so, yeah, it's difficult to practice because finding that much time to go like straight all the way through can be challenging. So, yeah, my goal right now is to see if I can get through all of my notes. The other thing that I'm trying to do with this talk is I want to get people more engaged by making people have to focus harder. And so I'm not doing slides. This is going to be interesting. And I also want to see if I can avoid worrying about notes as well, which means I just need to really memorize my talk very well. I have notes in front of me right now, and so I will be reviewing those. But yeah, I'm going to practice this more and more and more so that I don't need notes, maybe. I'll probably have my phone up on stage with me with notes just in case I get stuck, because that would just, it'd be better to have to get myself unstuck than to be stuck up there and like ruin the experience for everybody. So anyway, that's what we're doing here. Feel free to throw things in chat. I also, on my Discord, my bot created a channel for this specifically. So if you want to join the Discord and throw things in there too. Because the goal of this is to actually do a full practice and things, I'm going to do it in without like paying any attention to chat and things. So I'll look at what y'all have to say after I am finished, and hopefully I don't get interrupted. My kids are going to be at swimming lessons pretty soon, so I shouldn't even be interrupted by my kids. But yeah, that is what we're doing here. So let me just get rid of a couple things that could distract, and then I will get started. Whoops. Yeah, there we go. Okay, successfully. One other thing I just want to check. This, here we go. Okay, super. Okay, the other thing I guess I'll just mention is that this talk is, like I said, it is super long. And this will be the first time I've practiced it front to back. I spent hours yesterday on my one wheel talking through it all. And people I passed by probably thought I was talking to myself, kind of funny person. So there are definitely things in here that maybe shouldn't be or won't be when I get to the day to actually present the talk. But yeah, and this is the first time I've done it all the way through too. So it could be way longer, it could be a lot shorter. This is why we practice. Okay, that's it. Here we go. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Kent C. Dodds. I am really, really excited to be here on that conference stage. I actually watched a bunch of the keynotes from previous that conference talks, and it seems like every one of them is telling that conference joke, it's a joke about the name, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, so let's get into things. Clark just had you get moving and stuff. I might pause the talk halfway through to get us moving again, because this is a long talk. And my goal for this keynote is to help inspire you through my life experience, which seems to be the trend through most of the keynotes that are on this stage. So to do that most effectively, I think that it's useful for you to know who I am, because I don't expect that every one of you knows who I am. But also I want to use my story to help inspire you. And so by understanding a little bit of who I am and also where I came from, these stories will be more clear to you, and you'll hopefully be able to find ways to apply these principles to your life a little better. So, who am I? I'm a husband and father of 5 children. I live in Utah, where I love it. And if you follow me on x.com, then you will know that I really do love living in Utah, and I'll share wonderful things about living in Utah all the time. I'm an open source contributor. It is very likely that most of the developers in this room have installed and run some of my code on your machine. I am a TC39 Emeritus Committee member. I represented PayPal on the TC39. That's the committee responsible for standardizing JavaScript, the language. I care a lot about JavaScript, and I'm really, really excited about the future of JavaScript as well. I've worked at small companies and large companies, small companies making big impacts and huge companies making massive impacts, and everything in between. And I also have gone full-time as an instructor back in 2019. And so I teach people through testingjavascript.com and epicreact.dev and epicweb.dev. And my blog has over 200 blog posts and has been read by over 500,000 people all over the world since I started tracking blog post reads back in like 2021. And it was read many times by others before I started tracking that. But I actually track the reads. I'm not just saying, oh, you appeared on this page, therefore you read the blog post. No, I only track you as having read the blog post when you've been on the page long enough and you scroll down to the bottom. So over 500,000 of those, 600,000 of those individuals have been read a blog post on my blog. So my mission is to make the world a better place through quality software, and I do that by educating people how to make quality software so they can make their corner of the world better. And I feel like I've really accomplished this mission. So with that as kind of the backdrop of who it is that you're talking to here or listening to, I hope that we can take this opportunity together to make your life better and help you achieve your mission, whatever that mission may be. To add a little bit more context, I want to tell you where I come from, how I grew up, and some of my background and history. I think each one of us has our own levels of privilege, and I think it's really useful to know like where was my starting point in this world, and by having that context, it will help you understand what I had to do to get to where I am now, some things I didn't have to do to get to where I am now that you might have to deal with that I don't, and just contextualizing all of this so that these stories are more applicable to you. So I was born as the 11th of 12 children. So I have 11 brothers and sisters, 1 little sister and 10 older siblings. And so I know some of you, if you're thinking, you know what, I want to raise kids the way that Kent is, we'll start by having 11 children or 12 children. Just kidding. Yeah, I love all of my siblings. They're all fantastic. Each one of us is married and has kids of our own. I have like 50 something nieces and nephews. I have 5 children of my own. And I guess I should say one of my siblings is not married. He died in a tragic car accident. He fell asleep at the wheel. And so that might also contextualize for you why I care so much about full self-driving capabilities of vehicles, why I'm so excited about what Tesla is doing. Because if my brother had had any of the technology that we have in most modern cars today, he would probably still be alive. Certainly if he had a Tesla with that full self-driving capability, he would be alive still. So I am very bullish on that technology. Anyway, being one of, having like 10 older siblings had some very positive and also some negative, or not necessarily negative, but just some interesting implications and impacts on my life growing up. So I remember pretty much every year when I would start a new school year, the first day in class, I would have the teacher say, Kent Dodds, and I'd say, yes, here. And they'd say, oh, I had your brother or I had your sister in my class. They're awesome. And I'm thinking, yeah, they totally are awesome and I love them very much. But also, now I have to like outdo myself. I remember when I was reading Harry Potter, book 1 for the first time, Ron Weasley is talking about having all his older siblings. He had 5 older siblings or something like that. And he said, anything that I do is not a big deal because they all did it first. And so it's just kind of expected of me to be great. And I never get anything new. Everything's a hand-me-down. And I'm like, Ron, you get me. That is exactly what it feels like. It really does. And so it is challenging to be one of the youngest of so many siblings. That said, I had so many people to look up to and who could help me out in my own life and everything. So yeah, definitely pros and cons to having so many older siblings. But it also made me very competitive and it made me feel like I needed to distinguish myself in some way. In fact, the very first video of me as a baby has my dad saying, this is our 11th child and we don't have a name for him yet. He's going to have to make a name for himself. And that is like, that describes my life very well. I just always felt like I had to make a name for myself and distinguish myself against the rest of my siblings. So in some ways this was kind of humorous. In other ways it was like very serious in a good way. So like as an example, I became an Eagle Scout at the age of 14. That's about as young as you can do it. And I did this because I wanted to be the youngest to achieve my Eagle Scout award compared to my brothers, which I was. And then more humorously, when I got my wisdom teeth removed, I remember I wanted to recover from my wisdom teeth extraction faster than everybody else. I just wanted to, I don't know. And so what I did was I'm lying down on the bed recovering from the anesthesia. And my mom is sitting next to me and I start moving my arms and like moving my legs. And she looks over at me and she's like, what are you doing? And I said, I want to get the blood flow going in my body so that I can recover faster. And what's funny about that too, aside from that just being ridiculous, but what's funny is I actually recovered the slowest because I ended up with dry socket, and that is awful. If you've ever had your wisdom teeth removed and you got dry socket, it stinks. Literally, it actually does stink because the stuff they have to put. Anyway, yeah, I'm not gonna get into that. I need a content warning on this. So yeah, my growing up experience was unique for sure. And the other thing about my family is we're very religious. We're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And that means when I was growing up, we had 3 hours of church. And in one of those hours as a child, you're in primary and you're singing songs and sharing gospel messages and stuff. And you're also expected to take your turn at speaking in front of your peers. And so I've been speaking in front of my peers since I was 3. And that's just been like a couple times a year. And that's just been the way things are. And once you get to be a teenager, then you're invited to speak in front of the whole congregation of hundreds of people, adults and children alike. And so, and I did that a couple times as a teenager. So not everybody really loves that. And of course you can say no. But I really, really loved that. And I got really used to being in front of people. So I do still get nervous, even when I'm speaking as an adult in front of all my adult peers, a couple hundred people in church. I still get really nervous about that, even though I've done it many times. And standing up in front of you, all of you, I'm also nervous about this. But I think that it is... it's been a really positive thing for me to face those nerves, and I've gotten really used to that. So, yeah. Then another thing that I think is useful context before we really get into some of the takeaways. I promise I'm here to give you something, not just tell you about myself. But I went to Brigham Young University. I had to take the ACT 4 times to get to a score that was the average acceptance rate before I applied, and I managed to get in. And all of my siblings went to BYU as well. And I served a mission. So over half of my family actually served a mission for our church. This involves 18 months to 2 years of your life at the age of 19, 20, somewhere around there. And I learned a ton. Part of the challenge of that is you're paired with somebody that you don't get to choose, and you go to a place that you don't get to choose either. You're paired with an individual for could be 6 weeks, it could be 6 months, and you and that individual spend all of your time together. The only time you're apart is when one of you is using the bathroom. You are just always together for various reasons, and that taught me some valuable lessons about figuring out how to make things work, even if you don't like the person you're paired with very much, or if you two don't get along. I learned a lot in those 2 years. Very formative, and I wish I had more time that I could just tell you all about my mission experience. Feel free to come back, talk to me later about it, because there's so much that happened on my mission that made me who I am today. I think there's so much about who I am that is a direct result of my mission experience. And eventually I found my way into the information systems program, and I could tell you the whole story there too, but I've been talking too long about my background already. I want to start getting into the takeaways of my life experience now. So when I got into the information systems program, I decided, you know what, I need to have a job that is related to this field. So I looked around and I found this internship opportunity at a nonprofit organization called the More Good Foundation. And their objective is to just take all of the good things that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has produced over all the years and get those on the internet so that when people are searching for things about the church, they find these good things. And so one of my tasks was to take DVDs of videos that the church had produced, rip those DVDs and upload those to YouTube. And as you can imagine, this was a very annoyingly boring task. Just monkey work. Take the DVD, stick it in the thing, rip it, and then like copy down all of the text that was on there so I can upload it to YouTube with all the good SEO juice and all of that stuff. Very monotonous. Did not enjoy that at all. But I asked my boss, hey, is it okay if I automate this a little bit? Because I had actually been in programming classes before my mission. I remember actually sitting there thinking, like I did pretty good in those classes, but I remember sitting thinking, I don't think I could possibly do this for 8 hours a day. Yeah, sometimes you're wrong about your feelings there, but yeah. So I'm feeling like this is the most boring task I could imagine. I'm actually in the information systems program. I'm in a programming class as well, and so I think, well, what if I write a program that does some of this for me? Handbrake, which is the tool that I was using to rip these DVDs and convert them to files I could upload to YouTube. Handbrake has a CLI. And I could use Java, the programming language I knew at the time, to generate that CLI string and actually execute it and do a whole bunch of other things. In fact, maybe I could even figure out how to get it to upload to YouTube for me automatically too, and all of this stuff. So I asked my boss, can I automate this task? And she said, yeah, sure, go for it. And so I automate it. And now I'm much, much faster. All I'm doing is putting disks in the reader. I rip those and I put a whole bunch of those files in a directory, and then I let the program go. And then we actually started going to the church's website to download some of the videos that they had on there and re-upload those to our YouTube channels. We had 13 languages that we supported, so it was a lot. And I enhanced the program to be able to scrape the website, read all the title and keywords and all that stuff, download it and upload it up to YouTube. Of course, we had permission to do all of this. And I with the software program, I was like 1,000 times more productive. And they even had me present to the donors and the board of directors and stuff. They were very happy with what I did. Related to this takeaway I want to give you is my next job at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I was in the Enterprise Information Management department, and I was a business intelligence engineer. So one of the tasks that we're doing is creating reports for people who, for leaders of the church or whatever. So we're answering questions that they have about all of their data. And my mentor had built this software program that runs automatically every week to generate these reports, and it needed a couple of new features and some bug fixes. And as much as I enjoyed the star schema and database denormalization and ETLs and writing gobs and gobs of SQL, as much as I enjoyed doing all of that, I actually kind of felt like I wanted to work on this software a little bit more. And so I found myself writing more software. This was also in Java. And then I looked around and found other teams of business intelligence engineers where their customers needed reports sent to them. And so I added more and more features. I started documenting it all. And I remember my manager told me, I'm sorry that we hired you to do this thing and now you're doing something completely different. And I said, actually, I'm really happy with this and I'm learning a lot and I think it's really fun. So my takeaway from both of these stories is that if you're in a position that you don't particularly enjoy, you can absolutely kind of morph your position to do something that you enjoy more if you have a good understanding of what the core value that the business offers is. So I knew, okay, the More Good Foundation doesn't need somebody who's sticking DVDs in the DVD-ROM and ripping them and uploading them to YouTube. They need to have this video on YouTube, and however that happens is up to me. And then the church, they need these reports sent out, and they really what they need is their business or their leaders to be able to answer questions that they have, and I can help them accomplish that mission better. So having a good understanding of what the mission of your company is will help you find some more autonomy at accomplishing that task in the way that you enjoy more. And also I have numerous stories from my time at PayPal where there were a lot of different tasks and I just asked, can I do this? Can I do that part of the task because I want to learn this better, or I want to improve my knowledge around this or whatever. And so if you keep your head up and have a good understanding of what the business outcomes or the goals of the company are, what that mission is, then you will not only be able to push the mission forward better, but also position yourself in a way that you can accomplish your own goals better too. So the next story I want to tell you about is how I actually got my job at the church. So how I went from More Good Foundation to the church. So when I got into the information systems program, oh, hold on, there's somebody at the door and I don't think anybody's home. See, this will not happen on stage. But I'm going to just check this, make sure that this isn't important. Okay, no, we're good. So when I got into the information systems program, I was kind of bombarded with the idea that I need to find my summer internship. So this is September, and we're talking about April or May, having a job secured for that summer. And maybe I was not right to worry, but all of my classmates, high-performing individuals, and so we go to the career fair, and I'm seeing all my classmates get their internship offers. They're getting interviews, and I'm throwing my resume all over the place, and I get 2 or 3 interviews, and I fail them all. So I got rejected from all of the applications that I submitted. And so I'm kind of freaking out, oh shoot, I am not going to get a summer internship, or I'm just going to get the dregs of what's left over when all of my classmates got their job opportunities. And that stinks. The More Good Foundation was fine, but it wasn't quite in line with what I thought I wanted to do. Really, what I thought I wanted to do was something in business intelligence, because these different companies would come to us and present what they do. so that we could have a good understanding of what our different job opportunities could be. And I saw the business intelligence stuff, and I'm like, that sounds really interesting. The mesh of like using technology to answer business questions to make decisions sounds super cool to me. So I applied for that. I don't think I even interviewed for that, but I was looking on their website at all of the different opportunities for interns, and I saw one for project management. I didn't know anything about project management. I didn't think that I was interested in that. But at this point, I'm married, and I don't think we were expecting a kid yet, but we were planning on having a kid very soon. And my parents aren't paying for my education. I need to find a way to pay for my education, and I want to be able to have like an industry type experience to add to my resume, so that when I finally do graduate, I have a resume that like demonstrates I've been in the industry for a little bit. So I see this opportunity, I apply, I get called back, and I go up to the offices to interview. And it just takes a couple minutes for this guy to know that I'm not the right person for this job. He knows not only would I probably not do a great job at this, but also I don't seem really all that interested in doing this job anyway. And so yeah, that kind of stung a little bit, to be honest. But he said, you know what, I like the conversation we had. I feel like you have a good head on your shoulders, and we want to have you here. So I'm going to find somewhere to put you. And I ended up in a QA internship for the church. So I was around October timeframe. I had a QA opportunity at the end of April when school let out for the summer. And I was like happy to have an opportunity, but I didn't really know what QA was very well, and it also wasn't super jazzed about it. But you know, I got a job, so, and it's in the industry I'm interested in. So okay, fast forward to December timeframe, and that's the end of the first semester in the program. And for this, in our program, we had a week-long thing called Intex, which is basically an assignment that you work on all week. You basically, like, people work on this for 40 hours in that week with a team of other individuals. And the idea is that you are a consulting company, and another company has come to you with a problem that they have, and they want you to solve their problem with custom software. And so your job is to make a proposal, because they've sent this out to a bunch of other teams, which is your classmates, and they are looking for the best proposal. They're looking for cost analysis and wireframes and a bunch of other things for your what you can offer. So we divvy up our responsibilities on our team, and I get the responsibility to do the wireframes because I'd actually been building that thing at the More Good Foundation, that UI. And so like I knew UI, I guess, is why I ended up with that job. And so I put together a couple wireframes, and I'm like, this just doesn't look great. What if I built a demo application? And my teammates were like, Kent, don't do that. Just like, you did it, and now you can go relax or help us with a couple of other things and whatever. I said, you know what? No, I'm going to put in some extra time. So I actually spent like 80 hours that week so I could actually build the software that we were proposing we would build for them, just a demo of the software. I went like, if you want to talk about going the extra mile, I went the extra like 40 miles if I'm at a mile an hour. So I worked a lot that week. And we get to the end of the week, and what they do for judging is they have, there's a bunch of sponsor companies for the club. That's AIS, American Information Systems, or Association of Information Systems. It's a national club. And so a bunch of companies sponsor that club, and they have the sponsors of the AIS club come to judge. And they kind of rotate over the years. So this year just happened to be the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Enterprise Information Systems Department. They came to do the judging. And the judge that I got happened to be the director of the Enterprise Information Management the department. And so he was there. Also, a couple other people were there, and we get up to present, and they say, okay, tell us your name and what you're doing this, what your internship is going to be. Because again, like what your internship will be is like top thing. You need to have industry experience. So that's an important thing for them to know. So I say, my name is Kent Dodds. I wasn't Kent C. Dodds back then. The C came later. But my name is Kent Dodds, and I am actually going to be working at the church. I'll be doing QA. And they said, oh, okay, cool, interesting. So we present, and we get to the part where we're going to show them the wireframes. And I say, actually, more than wireframes, we have a demo. And so I pulled up my computer and I demo it on the projector, and they are blown away because they'd seen other presentations from other students that just had like black and white wireframes of what they're going to build. And here I am demonstrating the app is actually built. It's done. Just buy it from us now, please. Of course, it was all like fake data. And I told them that like, this is all just dummy data and stuff, but just to give you an idea of what we're planning on building for you. And they were so impressed that at the end of the presentation, they said, okay, so which one of you is responsible for the demo? And I said, yeah, I did all of that. And the director, he was like, wait a second, aren't you the one who's going to work over at the church for your internship? And I said, yeah, I am. And he said, you don't want to do QA. You want to come work for me. And I said, actually, you're right. I do. I want to do business intelligence. Please, can you hire me? And he totally did. He, because he's director, he's like 2 levels higher than the guy who hired me. He snagged me. And I had that business intelligence engineering experience, which, as I mentioned before, I turned into a software development experience. But what's really interesting and kind of funny, ironic about that is that he didn't hire me because of the software that I wrote, because he didn't want me to write software. In fact, he told me that, software developers are a dime a dozen. You don't want to be a software developer. You want to be a business intelligence engineer. That's where the money is. And I believed him. I was like, yeah, that's right. That's what I wanted to do anyway. So perfect. And so he didn't hire me because I built software. He hired me because he could see that I'm willing to go the extra mile, that I'm willing to put in that extra effort. And so I want to be careful when I give this as like recommended advice to anybody or anything, but I think that there's a lot of value in going the extra mile and then communicating that extra mile effort. Okay, so you can absolutely work extra hours for your employer and just like, you have this story, you say, that's like 3 days of effort. And they say, well, can you do it in 1? And you're like, yeah, I guess if I stay up all night tonight. And so you do. And they're like, great job, pat you on the head and then move on. That is not a healthy relationship. But if you are really committed to the mission of the company and you really want to make this thing happen, then you communicate the value that you created. And you do a really good job. You talk to your boss. You talk to your boss's boss. You talk and you build a culture at your company where you share and praise the people who put in the extra work. Because you could be putting in just an outrageous amount of work and never really get rewarded for it, because nobody is going to care as much about your career as you do. And so you need to communicate what you have accomplished and what you're capable of doing so that you can get those opportunities. I kind of fell into that. As luck would have it, the director was there, and so I was lucky in that way. But you can create that luck and communicate the value that you're creating by telling people what you've done. And it may feel kind of awkward to toot your own horn a little bit, but that's what you've got to do in this industry. You have to toot your own horn. So the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting is he said, you don't want to be a software developer, and so he brought me in to be a business intelligence engineer, but then I ended up doing software development anyway. Yeah, again, you can kind of make your career the way that you want it to be just by being intentional. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is how I ended up. Here, let me bridge us over to the next part of our story. So I'm working over at the church, and then the school year starts again, and I actually am staying at the church. They are enjoying my time there enough that they're like, hey, yeah, you can commute. And so I'm doing this big commute thing. It's not terrible because my wife has actually also started working up in that direction as well. And so we kind of commute together sometimes, and it works out quite nicely in that way. But school starts, and the church's offices are in the opposite direction from BYU, and so it's like this big annoying thing. So, and on top of that, I also want to have a variety of experiences, and so I'm looking for my next summer internship, and they're doing the career fair thing, and everybody's getting their opportunities. And I end up interviewing at a company called USAA in San Antonio, and I get an offer to intern there, and I'm like, sweet. But one of the other companies that I submitted to later in like November timeframe, they reach out and say, hey, actually, we got your resume. We want to have you come over here to do QA. And I'm not super into QA. Like, I'm not sure that's what I want to do, but I say, no, a lot less of a commute sounds really nice. And so, and Domo is the company. Domo sounds like a pretty cool and interesting company. So I go and interview, and actually they give me an offer, and then they say, hey, because you're a master's student, we'll give you $2 an hour more than we would alternatively. And that, I think, is the only time I ever got more money because of the master's degree that I received, which I have mixed feelings about, of course. But yeah, so I got that job at Domo. I start working over there. I spend like 2 weeks doing QA stuff, and then they transition me over to doing UI stuff with JavaScript. And that was when I was like, whoa, so Java is neat and stuff, but JavaScript is awesome. And I fell in love with JavaScript at Domo, doing UI stuff at Domo on our backbone application. Okay, so fast forward to the end of that year, and remember, I actually had a summer internship commitment with USAA. And so I told Domo before I left, actually before I was hired, I said, so I've got this internship for next summer that I've already committed to. Can I go to that and then come back and get my job? And they said, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. That's, and when we got to the time I was going to leave, I asked them again, like, hey, am I going to be able to come back and get this job? And they said, yeah, for sure. We're happy with what you've done. Yeah, you can totally come back and we'll just pick up where we left off. Another interesting thing is before I left, we hired a bunch of people. Dave Geddes in particular, he came over actually from the church, and he started talking with a lot of people about using AngularJS. And we were using Backbone, and he was like, I really think we should migrate from Backbone to AngularJS. And so I think we even had a workshop potentially that he presented before I left. And so I kind of got an idea of what AngularJS was all about. And then I leave for my internship, and I'm thinking, I do not want to come back and be like miles behind all of my coworkers. I want to know AngularJS just as well as they do. And so I spend that summer writing as much AngularJS stuff as I can. And in fact, I even morphed the internship a little bit so I can do that. I'm also like reading books. So it's like a mile walk from my front door to my desk in the office. And actually most of that is actually in the office because it's just a massive building. But yeah, so I'm reading books as I walk about AngularJS from Brad Green and Mishko Hevery, and the JavaScript Essentials, like that giant thick book, and JavaScript The Good Parts, all of that stuff, so that I can just improve my skills the whole time while I'm gone. So we get to the end of the summer. I've got about 2 weeks left, and I start emailing my manager to say, hey, what do you want me to do? Like, what day can I come back in? Like, what do I need to do to get back into the swing of things? I don't hear from my manager. I call the recruiter. Don't hear back from the recruiter. I hear from nobody. And I'm like, well, shoot, I guess they're ghosting me. They don't want me to come back. That's not good, because at this point now, my wife and I have a baby and another one on the way. And so not only do I need the experience, but I actually also need the money. And again, my parents aren't paying for my schooling. And so I am worried about what I'm going to do. We get home on like a Friday or Saturday. I hang out for the weekend, then I'm thinking, what am I going to do? And I want to ask you, what would you do in that situation? There are a couple of options. You could either just like chill with your family. School hasn't started yet, so hang out and just wait to hear back. You could start looking for other jobs while you're waiting to hear back. And maybe you find one and you take that job and just, say Domo didn't want me. Or you can do what I did. What I did was I guess another thing you could do is just continue to call incessantly until you get through. But here's what I did. Monday shows up and I go to work. I go in the front door. I don't have a badge, so I can't badge in. But I asked the receptionist, hey, could you go get my manager so that I can get to work? And she went and got my manager, and I said, and like his eyes bugged out when he saw me. He's like, whoa, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm here, ready to work. And he said, it took him a second to like find his footing, and then he's like, well, okay, yeah, sure, come on back. We'll find you a computer. And I got my job back. And I just think like there's a lot of value to being bold and seizing the opportunities that you have, and also like playing out the future. Like, what are the possible outcomes of this? Let's assume that we are in a world where they didn't want me to come back, actually, and or maybe they just didn't have a position for me or whatever. They could have told me that over email. So maybe I'm calling them, I'm emailing them, and eventually they tell me that. And that would have stunk. But if I go in and they tell me that to my face, like maybe that hurts a little bit, that'll sting a little bit more. But that's not like a really terrible thing. But let's play it out where they actually do want me to come back and they're just busy. So I wait like 2 weeks and then they say, oh yeah, Kent, why don't you come on in? Or maybe they think about it a little bit more and they're like, yeah, like he was fine, but whatever, we'll just move on from him, it's fine. But that's less likely to happen if I'm standing in front of them, right? And so I don't know how exactly it could have played out, but I do know that my best chance at success here was to hit the ball over to their court, find that they're not sending it back, and just run over to their side of the court and hit it back to myself so I can hit it over again, right? So sometimes you just need to put forth that extra effort, and sometimes that extra effort is what gets you the job. So related to this is actually how I scored my offer for full-time employment at Domo. And because when I left USAA, they gave me an offer. They said, hey, you have 2 semesters left of school before you get your master's degree. We'll be so happy to have you come back to work for us full-time. And I said, I love the people here. The experience was good. I just don't think that I'm going to enjoy working here. And so I said no. And again, I've got a wife and almost 2 kids. And I'm like, shoot, I blew it. I should have a job for the summertime. Now, this again is part of my conditioning for what the experience was like in school. Most of my classmates already accepted their full-time employment. There was another career fair. Many more of them got it. So I was one of just a few who didn't have a full-time offer for when we graduated. And so you might be thinking, come on, Kent, like most of us are waiting around for like months looking for work. How privileged can you get? And yes, I was privileged for sure. Being at a university where employers are coming to you, and also at the time, things were easier than they are now. I acknowledge that I had a lot of privilege in there, but I want you to enter my headspace so that you can understand where I felt that I was and the stress that I felt at the time. So just because your life is more stressful doesn't mean that I didn't feel enough stress to make my life really difficult at that time. So I'm stressed about getting a full-time job. I asked Domo, hey, can I get an offer from you to work full-time? And they said, no, we don't make offers that far into the future. Like if we just don't do that. And so I said, well, okay. And so I start actually looking around at other companies. I remember having an interview with LinkedIn, and I was talking with them. There were a couple other companies I was talking with for getting full-time employment after school was over. So let's, around September, I think it was like, September 14th is when this thing happened. But yeah, early September, I get a task to add keyboard shortcuts to the app. Our app is a dashboard. So there's lots of different actions that you can take, and there are people who work in it all day, and so they want to be very productive. And so adding keyboard shortcuts is the thing. So I add one that shows like, here are all the keyboard shortcuts. And I don't know if you use keyboard shortcuts a lot, but lots of the different keys that you can press to perform actions don't make a ton of sense. For example, how many of you know in Gmail what the keyboard shortcut is for archiving an email? And like some people will probably raise their hands. The keyboard shortcut is E. So if you're looking at an email, you hit E, it will archive the email. That makes no sense. Archive starts with the letter A, but A is taken by something else. And so they got to like come up with something totally random. So keyboard shortcuts, they're awesome, but they're just so limited and not very intuitive. And so I thought, well, how do I control my computer? I use Alfred. And it's like Spotlight or Raycast or ScriptKit we have these days. But it's just you do a keyboard combination, an input shows up, you type in the action you want to perform and hit enter. And it has really great filtering, so you don't even have to type the whole word and all that. So I thought, I'll build that for the web. But it wasn't part of my job, part of my task. And I think I never really asked my manager if that's what they wanted me to do. And so I just did it on the side instead. I built a library called Genie.js, and I just did it kind of for fun. I thought it was an interesting challenge. And then we have hack nights every couple weeks at Domo. And one hack night I said, okay, now I will implement Genie.js in our app to have a whole bunch of different actions that you can take and navigate and everything. And so for the hack night, I do that. It's like 11 at night when we finish doing our presentations. I did not win. The winner actually just installed some other library that somebody built and fed in some data, and it was like a globe and it looked cool. And I am not bitter at all that I lost. It kind of stung a little bit because I worked so hard on this. So anyway, I'm in at my desk in our cubicle. We called it the pit of despair. Where like you kind of walk into this hall of cubicles and then you get into this area where it's just cubicles around, desks around, and I was in one of those desks. And I'm packing my stuff, and into the pit of despair walks Merrick Christensen and Dave Geddes, followed by Josh James, the CEO of Domo. Now, you probably don't know who Josh James is, but he's kind of a big name in the Silicon Slopes area because he built a company called Omniture and sold it for Adobe for $1.8 billion in 2009, so a couple of years before putting together Domo. At the time I was working there, Domo had, I think I was like employee 130 or something like that. There were not a ton of employees there at that time. Yeah, so I'd seen Josh a couple times. We'd never really talked, and I was terrified of Josh. He was like, I was not a cool kid in high school. He was absolutely the cool kid in high school, and part of that cool crowd. I was like, I'm in the show choir, and I'm in like that type of scene. I was not in the sports or anything like that. I was not the cool kid. And that was fine with me, but I always get nervous when I'm around cool kids. And even now, I feel like some of you are the cool kids and I am not. And so I was super nervous. Like, here's this guy who has all of this power, all of this money, and he comes over to me, and Merrick and Dave are saying, hey, you should look at what this kid did. His Hack Night project was super cool. Again, it's 11 at night, and so like Josh is only there because he was doing something else. He watched the presentations. He must not have because they brought him to see me, but he was working on something else. Dave and Merrick bring him over to me, and now here I have to present to the CEO. And there's a bunch of other engineers who've come in, and they've like blocked off the way out. And so I'm stuck in like a cage match with the CEO. So I stumble through my presentation. I remember Merrick actually kind of helped explain what I did to Josh, and Josh was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. And that was kind of the reception there. And then Merrick said, and guess what, Josh, this kid is an intern. And he was like, yeah, well, good job, intern. And that was my moment. I was like, it's now or never. So I said, that's right, Josh, and if you give me an offer right now, I'll accept it. Those are the exact words that I said, and I remember like Dave and Merrick's eyes bulged out. They were not expecting I would do that, and they kind of stuck their necks out to bring the CEO over to me. So like they're like, well, we're in trouble now because Kent just did this stupid thing with the CEO. And Josh looks at me for a second, and it felt like an eternity. But he looks at me for a second, sizes me up, and he turns over to Merrick and Dave, and he's like, "You guys vouch for this kid?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." And so he grabs a paper and a pen, a red pen, and he slides it over the desk over to me, and he says, "Okay, what's your number?" And I'm like, "Wait, what? Did that work?" And oh shoot, I don't know what my number is. I hadn't actually thought about this. And so the average, I remember hearing recently that the average salary for graduates from my program was $60,000. And I was like, okay, I'll go 65K because I'm in a position of power here, I guess. And so I slide over to him, and he looks at it and he's like, okay. And then he calls up the VP of HR. By this time it's like 11:30 at night, and I'm sure he woke her up, and he says, "Hey, I've got this kid here who wants a job. Can I give it to him?" And I'm pretty sure he said, or somebody told me that she was like, "Josh, it's your company. You can do whatever you want." And so he's like, "Okay, great." And so he wrote out the formal offer. He said, "When do you start?" And I said, "Well, I'm still in school. I'm getting a master's degree." He's like, dude, just quit right now. You don't need to get a master's degree. You quit. Come work for me right now. I was like, "No, Josh, I really feel like I should finish. I just have 2 semesters left." And he says, "Okay, fine. When do you get out of school?" I said, "April 28th. He said, "Okay, April 28th. And then he signed it. He added a signing bonus, unprompted. He just did it. Probably because he felt bad for me because I lowballed myself. We'll find out later. But yeah, so then I still have that paper. It's actually on my website. You can go take a look at my 2010 Decade in Review blog post and a screenshot of that, or a photocopy of that offer letter. But yeah, the takeaway for you for this story, aside from it, I think being like the sickest way to get my first full-time job, is sometimes you've just got to be bold. You have to create the value, and then you have to communicate that value. Nobody cares about the value you create as much as you do. And if people don't know the value that you're creating, then you are not going to be able to accomplish and have the opportunities that you're looking for. So you need to create value, and you need to communicate the value. Sometimes it requires that you are really bold, and you need to seize the opportunity. Sorry, it was getting really hot, and it's hot outside now. So now it's a race against the clock to not have my CO2 levels go up too high. Okay, so another thing I want to talk about, another thing I want to give to you is the value of building a network. You need to build a network. So let me, as I was still in school, I started speaking at meetups. I was listening to a podcast. Jameson Dance was one of the co-hosts, and he said he started talking about these meetups that he was putting together that I think were really interesting, because at the time I loved the hack nights. I really loved just talking with people about tech and software. And I didn't really think about building a network. I was just like, I kind of enjoy this stuff. And so I want to go talk to more people about it. So what I did was I looked up, he talked about this site, meetup.com. So I look up meetup.com. I find Utah.js, his meetup that he organized. And I saw on the site that they didn't have any speakers for the next meetup. And I was like, oh, snap, this is sick. I can be a speaker. And so I message him and I say, hey, Jameson, my name is Kent, and I would like to speak at the next meetup. And he said, he didn't ask me, who are you? He didn't really care. He just said, that sounds great. What would you like to talk about? Because he just needed to update the meetup page for what I was going to talk about. And I said, well, I don't know. I guess I'll talk about Genie.js because I just built that thing. And he said, that sounds great. And I ended up, this was like 2 days before the meetup. And so I was like, oh, shoot, now I got to talk about Genie.js. So I built this whole like workshop application of like teaching people how to use Genie.js. And this is the first time that content creation led into a better documentation experience, even a better library. I added features because I was like, oh, I don't want to say that there's that limitation, so let me go add this feature. Now that there's not that limitation, I can just show it. And so like demo-driven development, it's 2 thumbs up from me. In fact, I'm not going to really talk about this much, but testing library, which is the de facto testing standard, and actually is built into Playwright. All those queries are now Playwright features. That started because I was giving workshops about testing. So yeah, demo-driven development, education-driven development, it's a thing, and it's great. So I built this app. I show up to the meetup. It's the first meetup I've ever been to, and I present at it. And I had a great time, and I very soon realized, oh, they're always looking for speakers. So they don't care who you are. They just want you there to speak. And so I continue to give these talks. And I just got to tell you that like some people will complain about meetups because they're too basic, too beginner. And like I don't need to go to a meetup because, I'm actually getting ahead of myself. I'll address those concerns here in a second. So another thing that I did during this time was my coworkers at Domo decided to throw the first Angular conference. They called it Conf. It was in Salt Lake. And because Domo was the premier sponsor and they were my coworkers, I went along with them. And I met members of the Angular team. That was so sick. And I also met Firebase, a new up-and-coming company that had this 3-way data binding with AngularJS. And it was this really cool thing. I developed a relationship with them. And I actually was one of their first community developer advocates. They called them torches. They called them torches. I told them to call them torchbearers, and I think they actually went with that. But anyway, I was the first one to represent Firebase as like a community member, and so I developed this relationship with them. And then at the same time, I'm still in school, and I think, you know what would be super cool is to take that workshop that Dave Geddes gave us on AngularJS and teach it to my co-students, my classmates. I don't know why. I just thought it would be fun. And so I'm thinking to myself, I can't get anybody to just like show up. And so what if I have pizza, right? Like I'm actually a member of the leadership of the AIS club. And so I know that like if you get a sponsor, then you can get people to your thing. And so I reach out to Firebase and I say, hey, would you give me like $100 so I can go buy a pizza and get people to this workshop? And they say, yeah, that sounds great. In fact, we'll also send you a pair of branded headphones and some branded hot sauce. And I'm like, awesome. And so that workshop, I actually live streamed it on Google Hangouts on Air. And then, so that's actually still on my YouTube channel. You can go check that out. But that was my first ever workshop, was based on Dave Geddes' AngularJS workshop and sponsored by Firebase. So fast forward, we all graduate, we move on. A couple months after graduating, I get an email from one of my classmates, Jeff Potter, and he asks me, or he tells me that he's building some software. He's using Django, and it's basically a CRUD app for a locks company. And he says, hey, we need to have a UI built for this. My Django stuff isn't going to do that. I just want to do REST APIs. But I know that you do UI because I remember you gave that workshop on AngularJS. You're the AngularJS guy. And I'm like, yeah, I am. And he said, this isn't like a full-time thing or whatever. We just need somebody to moonlight for us. So I earned a couple $1,000 because over the course of a couple weeks because I was the AngularJS guy. I was the one up in front. I was telling people, so here's the real secret here. You could just go up and tell people, I know this and I'm really good at this, or you can show them by teaching them that stuff. So I taught Jeff AngularJS, and presumably he could have done it himself. But he knew I was the expert and he didn't want to bother with building it himself, or he didn't have the time or whatever. And so he reached out to the best AngularJS person he knew, and that was me because I was the one up in front. This is going to be a recurring theme. So fast forward a little bit further into the future. And actually, I'll just add a phrase that I've come up with, and that is, it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you and what they know about you. So Jeff knew that I was the Angular JS guy, and that's why he reached out to me. So fast forward a couple months later, and I'm working, or I'm still working at Domo. Things are going great over there. And I am still speaking at meetups because I really enjoy the whole experience. So one of the my class assignments that I had before I graduated was to make an app that was both a web app and have a mobile app as well. So I had a REST API, and then the web app hit that, and then the mobile app would hit it. I think the web app actually was served by the API server as well. And so I was using cookies for this, and it was working great. But then this mobile app, which was an Ionic app, when I was running it locally, I was on a separate domain, and so I found the cookies weren't working. I was like, shoot, what do I do? And I discovered JWTs and how to communicate that. And so I decided, okay, I'll turn this learning into a workshop, or not a workshop, but a meetup talk. And I presented that at a meetup. And that meetup talk was recorded and put on YouTube, and John Lindquist watched it. He's also local, and so he was kind of curious what was going on in the local scene, very much an AngularJS guy at the time. And he sees my talk and he's like, huh, that's pretty cool. He reaches out to me and says, how would you like to make an Egghead course on this? So we're trying to onboard more instructors on Egghead because we don't want it just to be me. And I say, yeah, sure. So we meet in a parking lot. Open up our trunks, and he hands me the recording equipment. What did you think I was going to say? Anyway, so I learned how to record videos, and that becomes my first course, and it pays my mortgage from the very start. We launch it, and it starts paying my mortgage every month, and I'm blown away. I was like, whoa, I can actually make money doing this. That is so, I did it for fun before, but now like this is a non-trivial amount of money that it's making me. This is huge. And so I continued to make more and more Egghead stuff, and it all was because I was the guy up in front demonstrating what I could do. That matters so much. You need to have the right people know who you are and what you know. So I'm still at Domo, I'm still giving meetup talks, and there's a recruiter there from the church. The church is just like a big part of my life, I guess, both professionally and personally. And so the recruiter comes up to me and says, hey, listen, I've got a job opening for an AngularJS position at the church that pays anywhere from $80,000 to $115,000 salary, plus all the bonuses and whatever. How would you be interested in that? And I was like, wait, what? I'm making $65K. I just barely transitioned into full time, and I'm making $65K. I can make 80 or potentially even 115. Holy smokes. So I interview, and I actually get an offer. But the following meetup, the meetup organizer, who is Jason Waters, he works at Task, which eventually was renamed to Workfront, which eventually was bought by Adobe. I've got all these tie-ins with Adobe. Maybe I should work there. I don't know. But so Jason is talking with the recruiter, and the recruiter's like, yeah, guess what? I found somebody here at the meetup. Like, it actually worked. And Jason's like, sweet. Like, as a meetup organizer, that's a big part of what you're trying to do, is help connect people, right? And so Jason, he knows me because I've been presenting at his meetup so much, and Matt Zabriskie as well. And so Jason's like, well, who is it? And the recruiter is like, I don't want to tell you. You're going to steal him from me. And he's like, no, I'm not. No, just like, who is it? He's like, it's Kent. And he's like, oh, okay, I got to go. He didn't talk to me in person that night. That would just be a little too on the nose, but he emailed me that evening. He was like, hey, I heard that you're actually entertaining other opportunities. Would you like to come and interview with us? And so, yeah, I totally did. And I interviewed with them. I liked their offer better. It was for $100,000. I think actually the church was also $100,000, but I didn't want to work at the church again. I wanted to go to @Task with these guys. And so, I went from $65K to $100,000 in 4 months, from graduation to converting into a full-time employee, getting 65K, and then went to 100K in 4 months. And that was amazing. And this happened because I was the guy up front. I could have just been an attendee, and Jason would have like patted himself on the back for connecting an attendee with a recruiter. But because I was the guy up front demonstrating the value that I can create, he wanted me. And that matters so much, to be a desirable person, that people know who they are. Like, imagine if Dave Geddes and Merrick Christensen didn't like me. Do you think that they would have stuck their necks out to Josh and said, hey, Josh, come look at what this intern has done? Or when he asked them, hey, do you vouch for him? Like, what if they had said no, right? You want to be somebody that people knows, that they like, and that they know what you can do. You've got to communicate the value that you create. And also, to kind of wrap this up, this idea up of like how important that network is, and being in the front, how important that has been for my career, at least. I went to React Rally the following year. I was no longer at Task anymore. I transitioned over to another company called Alianza. I was still doing AngularJS, but I was starting to get a little disillusioned with AngularJS. I wanted to get into React. And so, and I thought, well, maybe we can migrate to React. And so my boss, who wanted to keep me happy, and because I was a pretty big part of what they were doing, I actually, when I transitioned from AtTask to Alianza, I got 120K. And so that was a period of 6 months from Domo, starting at Domo at 65K. 6 months later, I'm at Alianza making 120. So I almost doubled my salary in 6 months, which blows my mind. But it just makes me think that I super duper lowballed when I gave that number to Josh. But it's neither here nor there. Anyway, so I go to React Rally, and I meet a couple of people. I meet a bunch of people, actually. Because this is a new community. I've been in the AngularJS community. I run a podcast, and see, I'm putting myself in front, and people know that Kent is the AngularJS guy. What is he doing at the React conference? And a lot of people don't actually know who I am. And so I'm just meeting tons and tons of people. And two people that I meet, James Charles and Jamin Ferguson, work at PayPal. And I develop a relationship with them, and we follow each other on Twitter, is what it was called back in those days. And I remember tweeting something that's about the object spread syntax. And James Charles, I am lamenting that I don't really use it, because I don't use JSX, and you can spread props on a JSX element. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And I say, it's too bad I can't do that, because I'm using Angular, not JSX with React. And James Charles replies and says, hey, if you actually came to work at PayPal, then you could. Do you think he would have said that if he didn't like me? No, probably not. Do you think he would have said that if I hadn't gone to the conference and met him in person? Of course not. He wouldn't know who I was. So he said that because I met him at the conference, developed a relationship with them, and was a likable person. And so he says, like, you could work it with me at PayPal, and now you can use React. And I replied back and said, actually, I failed to mention this. At the time, I also had been interviewing at Facebook, and I just rejected an offer from Facebook because they wanted me to relocate. And I didn't want to move to California. And so I replied to him and I said, not if I have to move to California, because PayPal's in San Jose. And he DMs me and he says, actually, Jamin just moved from San Jose up to Washington, and they wanted to keep him, so he's remote. So our team is actually partially remote already. I think we could actually make this work. And I'm like, no way, awesome. Totally, let's do this. And I got my job at PayPal because of a tweet. So being active, being up there, being likable, being there so that people can see you and the value you can create, and having a network of people who care about you and like you. I mean, I know I'm talking to the choir here because you're all here at this conference, but you've got to be there. You've got to be in person. And certainly there are people who manage to accomplish this by having online relationships and things. But I think that I've not seen that to be as effective as when you meet somebody in person. There's just, we could run a whole conference that's just a bunch of deep fakes, and you're not going to get any network building out of that. You might get a bunch of knowledge, and that's great. But the reason we go in person is because of that network opportunity. So you've got to be there. You've got to go in person. And if you're in a location where there aren't any conferences going on, then or meetups or anything, then start one yourself. And I can say this because I've done this. And yes, I have my level of privilege and everything and the connections that I built up over the years. But when I started, I didn't have any connections. I built those connections by attending the meetups and putting myself out there and talking with people. And I think that it's not a far cry from something that you could do as well. So get out there. Okay, so where am I time-wise? I think I'm way over time. Is there like a timer? Oh yeah. So I went live an hour and 11 minutes ago. It took me like 10 minutes to get started. I probably have like 15 minutes left, and I'm thinking about how much time that I've got. This is actually going pretty well. This next bit might take more than 15 minutes, but we'll see. I definitely welcome any feedback people have on any parts of like the stories that were not relatable or didn't connect or anything like that. Definitely leave me your feedback in comments and on X and on Discord and stuff. So I'm working at PayPal. Things are going great. I'm doing this thing on the side, making these courses that's paying for my mortgage, and things are going awesome. I'm having more kids and my family is growing. Everything is awesome. And over time, I'd been delivering a bunch of workshops around testing. It just kind of became a thing naturally for me. As I was building open source libraries, I wanted to test them. And the more you test, the more opinions you develop. And when you have a personality like mine, you just want to teach people this stuff. And so I start putting together workshops, and I'm going to conferences to deliver these workshops and talks and different things. And so by this time in, I think it's like 2017, 2018, I have a bunch of workshop material that I put together on the side, and I start delivering that workshop material to my coworkers at PayPal as like practice for what I'm doing. Of course, like I'm getting paid a salary, so I'm not charging them tickets or anything. I go to the office and I say, hey, I'm in the office. I'm going to be in this room all day teaching people testing, and I get a bunch of people to come. And in fact, I recorded a lot of those, a couple of those at least. They're on YouTube. Because there wasn't any proprietary information about that, and so I just recorded it, and you can go take a look. So in the process of building all these workshops, I'm like, okay, sweet. Now I've got like some good workshops for front-end masters. I failed to mention, but I got my relationship at front-end masters from being at a conference as well. Actually, fun fact about that conference, that other conference, it was Midwest JS, and I went to that conference and met Mark Grabansky, and that's how I developed that relationship there. But I went with Matt Zabriskie, who was my coworker at the time. He was the one who referred me or got the referral bonus, and then I left early and he lost it. I probably won't say that. But anyway, Matt and I were there together, and the night of the conference, night before the conference, he actually decided he was going to build Axios, and that's where Axios came from, was at that conference. Anyway, so I've developed all of these workshops, and I go to Egghead and I say, hey, I've got a bunch of workshops that I could turn into courses, just letting you know I'm going to be working on this. And Joel Hooks at Egghead is like, hey, actually, what if we make you a special site that's just for your workshops? And you can, and it's like totally different, separate sort of thing. And I said, that sounds interesting. Yeah, let's try it. And so that's where testing JavaScript came from. And this is actually the first time that the Egghead folks put together one of these course platforms outside of Egghead. So then you have your testing accessibility from Marcy Sutton, and you've got your just JavaScript from Dan Abramoff, and like a whole bunch of others that have total TypeScript now from Matt Pocock. So testing JavaScript was the first one. And so again, I'm still working at PayPal, but I'm working in the evenings. My wife and I, we have dinner, we put the kids to bed. My wife is like, I've been with little children all day. I need some time alone. And like, she's still that way sometimes. She loves me very much. Don't worry, there's nothing like that. But yeah, she just sometimes needs time alone. And so I'm like, that sounds fine. I will go down and I will work. And I spent like 20 hours extra a week recording all of the workshops for testingjavascript.com. We launched Testing JavaScript, I think it was a Black Friday sale in November. And in the first 2 weeks when in that launch period, I make twice my PayPal salary. And I am just blown away. Now, of course, the launch week is always going to be bigger than the long tail afterwards, but I am still selling licenses to that. I updated it when there were some things that fell out of date, but that has paid off like hugely. And I realized, oh my gosh, I don't need to have this much money. I don't need to like hustle this hard, but I did need to hustle. Like I really, really need to work really hard. I was putting in an extra 20 hours a week to get Testing JavaScript off the ground. And I know a lot of people are nervous about taking the leap from one job to like their own business. And everybody's experience is going to be different. But my experience was spending like 6 years working on stuff on the side, building material and establishing my name as an educator and writing blog posts and all of that stuff. And then by the time I left PayPal, I was making more than what I was making before. So it was not even a leap of faith. It was just like a step in a different direction. And so, like I said, everybody's experience is different. You might have somebody that you have to take care of in the evenings. My wife is a full-time mom, and so she can take care of the kids. And of course, I do spend a ton of time with my kids as well. But I can only do that because of how much I hustled early on. So testingjavascript.com is released. The next year I update it. The next year is 2020, and I put together epicreact.dev. I've got a ton of workshops I've been working on for years, and I go through and release epicreact.dev. And I want to deliver these workshops as like legit workshops to legit like real life people, so I can get all this good feedback. So I do this masterclass thing. It's like 8 workshops over the course of 4 weeks. Goes super duper well, and then I record it and launch it. And that thing does 7 figures in the first 24 hours. It blew me away. I had no idea that I could have that kind of success, and it was huge for me, life-changing even. So the next year, I decide, okay, I've really got to build something because I'm a full-time teacher now, and so I decide to rebuild my website, and I write all about that. If you look on my blog, it's something about building a website in 2021, how I built a web app in 2021, or something like that. I overscope my website big time so that I can have it resemble something that I would build at a big company like PayPal, or even at a smaller company that just really cares about really great user experience. And then I join Remix for a little while, and then I start working on Epic Web. And this is where I want to focus almost the rest of our time here. epicweb.dev was something that I've been wanting to do for a really long time. In my Decade in Review blog post, I referenced this tweet from a woman named Erin, whose last name I totally forget now. But she said, like, I'm almost expecting you to announce a KCD University or something. And I reply and I say, no joke, this is my plan in the future. I want to make kcd.edu. Which like it had to be an accredited university to get that domain. But my idea is I just want to teach everything that I know. I just like, let's just keep teaching stuff. And epicweb.dev was the realization of that thing. So here's the story of how Epic Web Dev came to be. I leave Remix. Remix gets acquired by Shopify. I say, work is done. We did it. Awesome. I'm going to go back to full-time teacher now. And I say, okay, I need to have an application that, like, the idea was if I build an application that resembles the way that I would build a real app, then I can just teach people how to build that, and I will have taught them everything that I think is important for building an application. So I am live streaming all the time, Rocket Rental, we're building this app. We have like really cool designs and everything. And then I turn the first portion of that into a workshop. This is like how to get it up and going and everything. And then I build and I deliver that. I'm building this workshop app thing. that makes it really easy to know which files you're supposed to work in, and it helps you know the difference between where you're at and where the final solution is. So I've got all this diffing capability. It's a very cool app, and if you haven't gone through any of the Epic Web workshop experiences, you absolutely should, because it's really, really great. So that goes pretty well, but I'm finding that the app itself is quite a bit more complicated than I think is necessary for people who are trying to learn what I'm trying to teach. And I'm also finding that it's very difficult to sell tickets to these things because people don't know that they're a customer. With testingjavascript.com, somebody says, I need to know how to test JavaScript. Boom, I'm a customer of testing JavaScript. It's very obvious. With Epic React, I need to know React. Boom, Epic React. It's very obvious. I need to know web. Like, nobody knows that. I need to be a web developer. Most people who say that are total beginners, and I'm targeting more advanced people. And so I thought about, well, maybe I just call it Epic Remix and lean into the fact that it's Remix. But Remix is just a small sliver of everything that I plan on teaching on Epic Web. So I don't really want to do that. But I also I'm really struggling with targeting the audience. So through a bunch of helpful tips from other people and stuff, I come to realize that I need to embrace the opinionated nature of the way that I build web apps and the way that I teach to build web apps. And so I create the Epic Stack, which is basically the Rocket Rental app pared down to a much simpler application, so that it's easier to remove stuff. And so it can be a project starter and a project reference. And so then my workshops turn into, okay, let's build the Epic Stack. And I can build a community around the Epic Stack, and people say, I want to learn how to build really awesome apps the way that Kent does. Oh, he has the Epic Stack, and here he teaches you how it all works. So I'm going to go learn that. Okay, so with all that backdrop, I've got a 2-day workshop that teaches you how to start Rocket Rental. I also had another workshop I taught once that was how to test Rocket Rental. And so I'm thinking, okay, I also need to have a forms workshop and a database management workshop and an authentication workshop. So I've got 5 workshops altogether. I'm pretty sure that I can retrofit the existing ones to be the new Notes app that is what the Epic Stack is. And then I can build out the rest of these. So we're looking at this time period is mid-May. I just ran Remix Conf Year 2 and I was done with that. And so now, okay, I can work on those workshops leading up until running those later on this year. And my wife and I decided after 4 years I guess it was 5 years of having no kids, my youngest was 5. After that time, and we felt like 4 was a good number, we decided, you know what, 4 is not a good number, and we're going to have another one. And so we were pregnant with our 5th child. And so there was kind of a deadline already set for us. By the time the baby was born, I wanted to be totally done. So deadline is in November. Or maybe you'd call that a lifeline because he's coming to life. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm thinking, okay, I want to get done by October just in case the baby comes early. And so here's May, here's October. I need to have the videos done by September so that the team has time to get that launched. And then that means I need to have some time to edit and record those. So I need all of the workshops to be done by August. But oh wait, I have React Rally. And so I need to push that up so that I'm not splitting the workshops, because this is going to be multi-weeks every we're going to be running these 2 times a week. I don't want to have a break because of React Rally, so I'll push it up even further. So now it starts mid-July and it goes through mid-August, these 4 weeks worth of workshops. Okay, and I'd say, okay, we can do this in 8 days, 4 weeks, that'll work. So I'm starting in mid-July. So we're here over at May, and I need to start in mid-July. Okay, I think I can do that. This is me committing to a huge thing, and I'm going to sell tickets. And once I've sold tickets, now it's a huge commitment. So I list the tickets for sale, and I'm working on retrofitting the existing workshops that I've got. We sell out the 30 tickets that we listed very quickly. before the early bird is out. And so I'm thinking, I've done like 80-person workshops before. I'm pretty sure that I can increase the number of people without degrading the experience, because the workshop app helps a ton. And the way that I run workshops now with GatherTown and other things, it just makes the experience so much better than it has ever been. So let's add another 30 tickets, and we sell those out very quickly also. So I'm like feeling awesome, but also this is an enormous commitment to 60 people who are going to be coming to this workshop. So like, wow. All right, great. So let's get to work. And so I'm working on it. I have to also work on the workshop app while I'm making improvements to all of that. And I'm getting closer and closer to mid-July, and I'm still not done with that first workshop. And I'm like, shoot, I'm in so much trouble, because the first 2 days are the first 2 workshops. I'm almost done with that workshop. So I'll be ready for those. That's fine. But next week I need to teach web forms. And I think that was a 1-day workshop. And then the next Thursday so it'd be Tuesday would be web forms. Thursday would be day 1 of data. And like, oh shoot, like I've got to have that ready. And then the next Tuesday would be another data, and then authentication, and another authentication, and then the testing. And none of those are ready. And so now I am in big trouble. And I was still pretty confident that I could do this, because once the workshop app is done, then maybe I don't need to spend so much time on this. I know what the end looks like. I've already done that. So it's just a matter of like getting the workshop exercises all laid out. And so I start working more, and I talk to my wife and I say, hey, so here's the situation. I can cancel and refund everybody. We could do that. But I think I can make this work if we can do this together. And she said, yes. So for the next 6 weeks, my wife is waking up with the kids, taking them to school. Actually, no, it's summertime, so she's not taking them to school, but she's taking care of them, and then putting them to bed by herself. I wake up. I make sure, actually, I did a really good job of keeping a schedule of 8 hours of sleep, or close there to, like 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I did very good at that. I think I actually even exercised as well. So I ran, because I was like, my body has to be like super duper in shape for this to work. And so then I'm going, I hop on my one wheel, I go to a Starbucks for the day, and I spend like 10 hours there with like little breaks to get food and stuff. And then I go to another place and I spend another 6 hours. I'm working 16-hour days for 6 weeks straight, and 6 days a week. I never worked on a Sunday. That's just no touchy for me on as far as that is concerned. I would sometimes wake up early on a Monday if I really needed to get some more work done. And so like, maybe that's kind of cheating, because I'd go to bed earlier on a Sunday, so I could wake up earlier on a Monday. But that's just a commitment that I've made for myself. So anyway, that was insane. An outrageous amount of work went into making this happen. And I only feel comfortable telling you this because the reception from the attendees was enormously positive. People really appreciated the workshops. They thought they were really great. The recommendability score was something like 4.75. So very positive reception for these workshops. To give you an idea of how much work this was like hundreds of commits in the span of those weeks to each one of the workshops, just so many commits to each one. And the final word count of the instructions was more than a Harry Potter book. Harry Potter book 1 is like 70,000 words or something like that. And I wrote 110,000 words in that time frame. I was constantly on, working like an outrageous amount. I was sleeping well. I was exercising. I was getting some downtime with riding my one wheel. So I was doing all of the right things, and my wife super duper stepped up so that I could achieve in that way, and spend that much time working on that stuff. So sometimes, like, a couple of things I want to call out about this, and then I'll be done. Sometimes you just have to work freaking hard. And sometimes you have to make enormous commitments and follow through on those commitments to get an enormous payback. So those workshops went super well. I had 27 days. This is excluding Sundays and the days I was at React Rally. 27 days to get the videos recorded. If you were following me on X during that time, you saw me tweet like, oh, I got 16 videos recorded today before the kids got home from school. I got 30 videos done. I got 50. I got 40. I got 60. I recorded like an outrageous amount. And at the same time, I was also doing expert interviews. So I had to coordinate schedules with other people to have interviews with people that would be available on the site as well. Just an outrageous amount of work. And I was still, after the workshops were done, I was still working like 12 to 16 hour days every day, including Saturdays. Because I actually, I found that the amount of workshop material that I had was not the 10 days that I thought originally. So I think actually we did 10 days. It was 5 weeks, two days a week. It was 16 days. 16 days of stuff. So I actually skipped over some parts that like some of the written pieces that I knew we wouldn't get to. And so I had to go back and do those. So I'm finishing the writing of all of that stuff. I wrote another like 40,000 words, and I'm recording all the videos. I'm recording the expert interviews, and I finish 2 days early to get all of that material to the Skill Recordings team so they can get this thing launched. And when it launches on my birthday, that launch week, we do another 7-figure launch. So it paid off. Big time, but it was only possible because my wife committed to me. We worked together, we're a team, and she put in a ton of work. When school started, she was taking kids to school, she was picking them up, and she was putting them to bed by herself for that time. And then I was putting in 10 to 16 hours of work for weeks. And now that's done. We delivered, and it went super well. I'm really happy with how all of that went. Sometimes you just have to make a massive commitment, and you have to put in an enormous amount of work. And I wish that I could say that you didn't have to work super hard to have a ton of success, but I don't know of anybody who has accomplished that. Even in my privileged position, I had to put in all of that work. It's a lot. And I want you to walk away from this keynote thinking, man, I can do that. Like, that is not outside of my opportunity, my potential. Whatever constraints you're operating under, you can put in that work. So the last thing that I want to talk about, and then we'll wrap this up like 20 minutes later, whatever. The last thing I want to talk about is the importance of taking care of those most important relationships. So last year, my wife and I celebrated our 12th anniversary. We've been married now it's been 13 years. And I had learned that I couldn't do this by myself, and that Brooke needed to also be invested in this, and that she would be okay with me spending that much time working, and that she would pick up the extra slack. And so I had a conversation with her about that. But I haven't always been that way. There was a time once late at night, it was like 11, and I'm working on some open source thing that I am just enjoying, and I'm in flow, and I'm feeling awesome about how things are going. And Brooke, what I'm working on is this library called API check. That's like it was prop types before they extracted prop types, and it was slightly different, kind of like Zod. It was for validating API calls before we had TypeScript, or at least before TypeScript was as popular as it is now. Anyway, so I'm working on this thing, and I'm in flow, and my wife comes down and she said, "Hey, are you going to come up to bed?" And I say, "Yeah, 15 minutes." And of course, like, we all know what we mean when we say that, but and I was immature at the time to even say that to my wife and give that kind of expectation, and she also was inexperienced to believe me that I meant what I said, or that would actually play out that way. And so she goes up to the room, she's waiting. She texts me a couple times, and I keep saying, "Yeah, just 15 minutes. I'm almost done. Let me just finish this thing." But I kept on coming up with, "Oh, then I need to do this, and then I need to do this." And I'm just like in flow. It gets to be 2:30, and she comes down again, and she is not happy with me at all. And we have a nice chat about that. And I learned a lot. So I have found that when my relationships in my family, the most important relationships, are not working, then I'm not working either. And I really struggle to, even if I have success, I struggle to find joy in that success if my most important relationships are not in line. And so it's not really a work-life balance. You give all of everything you can to your family, and then you find ways to dedicate time to the things that you enjoy and to your career in between what you're trying to do to take care of those relationships. It is a tricky thing, but I think like the simplest thing to say is your most important relationships are most important because that should have the priority in your life. And no success that you have outside of those relationships you have in your home can compensate for a failure in those relationships. Some of you might recognize that as a quote, but that is the most important thing. That's why I saved it for last. Despite all of the really awesome things I feel like I've accomplished in my story that I've told you today, the most important thing that I can leave you with is take care of those relationships. And if you don't have those, like you're living alone, or whatever, I can't really speak to your position because I was married while I was even still in school. Like I didn't waste much time to start a family and all of that. And that was a priority for me. So I can't really speak to your lived situation, but I can tell you that I've never been able to experience as much joy and happiness and fulfillment as I have as a parent and a husband. And so I recommend committing to really solid relationships, to really big and important things, and really big and important relationships. And that level of commitment is where I find most of my joy and satisfaction in life. And I hope that you can find joy and satisfaction in yours too. Thank you. Okay, there we go. That is my talk. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to take a look at some of the comments and stuff and respond to that, and then I'm going to wrap up. So I'm looking at Discord first. Amir is saying, mind blown by your story, even by the Tech Savvy Church. Yeah. So my church has been doing like tech stuff for years and years. In fact, the what's it called? Music in the Spoken Word has been running broadcasting for longer than anything. It's the longest continuous running broadcast of anything ever. It started with radio and then went to, now it's live on YouTube every week. Yeah, longest weekly live broadcast of longest running. Yeah, whatever. I think you get it. So yeah, my church is very much tech savvy. It's pretty cool. Kenneth, I find it amazing the amount of content you were putting out and still maintaining that very high quality that we expect from you. Yeah, thank you, Kenneth. I appreciate that. That is, yeah, quality does not take a back seat even when I have a ton of stuff to do. Okay, so here on YouTube, any advice for beginner and React developers? This is not the place to ask those questions, but if you want to ask that, you can go to the Call Kent podcast and ask on there, or join me in my office hours each week. Greetings from Poland. Hey, Poland, I will be in Poland in September. I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be sweet. Steven says, love hearing this. Awesome. Gabriel, hi. Kyle, wait for it. Yeah. Can't make it to that this year, so I'm stoked I can catch this keynote. Oh, thank you. I hope that you enjoyed that. It will be better on that stage, I think. But yeah, thank you. Probably describing of changing jobs in great details and specific people is not that necessary. Fact of changing job, how this transition happened in short takeaways that save 20 minutes. Yeah, that I think, I have a tendency to be long-winded, and I think that came out in here. And having, yeah, so I'm at an hour and 39 minutes right now. It took me about 10 minutes to get started. So that's an hour and a half. I'm like 15 minutes over. So yeah, by tightening that up a little bit, I think we can get in the time. Thank you for that feedback. Thanks a lot, Brian. Anything to add? Month subscription for the workshops. So here's my problem with subscriptions. It means that I am committing to you to continue to deliver when I want to always have an exit strategy. I don't want to commit to like a long-term relationship with people. I would much rather just say, here's what it is, and buy it, and now it's yours, and we're done. And I will continue to deliver stuff, and I do my office hours, and I do all of my live streaming, all that stuff. And I don't mind doing that. I like doing that, but I don't ever want to find myself in a position where I committed to something and I can't deliver. So I do make big commitments, like I talked about in my talk, but I like those to have an end date, and a subscription does not. And so that's why you probably will never see me do a subscription, even though it means I probably would end up with more money. I just don't think I want to do that. Gabriel, Epic Staff Repo helps me every day. Yes, I'm glad to hear that. Epic React for React Beginner by Kent C. Dodds. Oh, they're probably talking to Guru about that. Thank you. What do you think is the best option today to develop scalable spas? I would look at using React Router and Vite. Look at that. It's very good. Good stuff. Okay, I don't know. So we've got the multi-stream chat, but nothing in here is loading. Let me just check X really quick. To see if anybody messaged in there, and then we will be done. Oh, Umair, I think is how you say that. You are one of the best people in JS. Oh, that's very nice. Thank you. Is there a live chat? There is a live chat on X. It's loading. Okay. Danny Tooney, hello. Any advice on introverts that find in real IR difficult to be likable and form connections? IR, it's like in real life, maybe IRL. Yeah, I don't. So like that actually would probably be a better question to ask on the Call Kent podcast, because I could think a little bit more about that, and that's kind of the setting right here is not really a setting for that kind of question, but since it's relevant to the talk, I would say, I don't know, the more you do, the better you get. So I grew up in a family with 11 other siblings, so I'm always with people and working out differences and stuff. My mission was huge in helping me figure out how to be likable. There's actually a book called How to Get Friends and Influence People, I think that's what it's called. That would be a good one to read through, I think. So, okay, sweet. Well, that's fun. Thanks everybody for joining. This was a good time, and I hope you all have a really awesome, fantastic day. I am actually feeling pretty good about this talk. I think this is going to be great. So I just need to practice it some more, so I don't need to reference my notes like I was doing today. And yeah, I appreciate the feedback for sure. Okay, thanks everybody. We'll see you in the future. Come to that conference. You should be there in person, like I said in my talk. Okay, I'm done. Bye.